All right, let's get started. I'm going to show you a little bit here of Nhost and how we can use Nhost to build super simple and powerful web apps. So I'm just going to go through the example app, the Quick Start app that we have in our documentation. So yeah, just follow along. I'm going to log in here at Nhost. So I'm going to sign in with my GitHub account. And I already have a project here. I'm not going to use that one. I'm going to create a new one called To-Dos. We're going to build a simple to-do app. I'm in Stockholm, so Amsterdam is the closest for me. Maybe some of the other locations are close to where you are. You can just change location. All the rest of the settings can be left as default. And we're going to wait here for a few minutes for for our Nhost project to start. While that is going on, we will create a React app. So npx create React app Nhost. We can name it Nhost To-Dos, maybe just To-Dos. So let's see. I'm going back to the Nhost console. The project is ready here. If you have the time, you can answer some questions here. It will help us make Nhost better. But you see here, project is online. All the certificates, all the backend, all the databases are provisioned and ready for us. So we're going to go to the project here. So this is the dashboard. The important things here are probably the API endpoints that we're going to use. So you have your own API endpoints here for the GraphQL API and Hasura, and also for authentication and storage. All systems are green. That's nice to see. So everything is healthy. And we are actually, the React app is finished, but we're going to wait with that one a little bit. Actually, we're going to go to the Hasura console and check that one out. So I'm going to open the console here, copy the admin secret, and log in. So this is our Hasura instance for this to-do project that we're doing here. You can note here that there's a user table already ready for you. This is where all your users are gonna be saved. There is also authentication schema with some more tables that also handles authentication. You don't need to worry about them. So let's go back to the public schema. That's the default schema. And we're going to create a to-dos table. So I'm going to name it to-dos. Then I'm going to set my columns here. I'm going to use some frequently used columns. I'm going to use ID and ID. And also going to add a created at column. So the created at column will update automatically with the date and time of when the record was created. So that's good. And I'm going to add a name to the to-dos. And it's going to be a text, and then last I'm going to have a completed, which is going to be a boolean, default to false. Yeah, that looks good. I'm going to add that table. So I just want to note here, I just want to show you here. Yeah, I already have this query ready here. So now we have a GraphQL API, so I'm querying the to-dos table with ID created at name completed. Of course, there is no to-dos inserted yet, so I get an empty array back. So let's insert some to-dos manually. Maybe workout, and also maybe a clean kitchen. Insert. So we now have two to-dos here, workout and clean kitchen. And let's go back to the GraphQL API, make the same request, and you can see we get data back here with our GraphQL query. Okay, so our API is working. We can insert data, we can get data. What we're going to do now, since these queries that we're testing here, we're using the admin secret. We're effectively querying the data as an admin. And we don't want to do that in our app because the admin secret should only be, it's a secret token that only you as an admin should have. You shouldn't pass them to the users. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this to-dos Todo's GraphQL API endpoint available for everyone. So to do that, we're going to set some permission, and we're going to use a public role. The public role is special in Nhost. The public role means all users who are not logged in. So if someone comes to your website, they are not logged in, and they want to insert or select or update or delete some data, Hasura will treat them as a public role. So the public role, for the public role, on insert, we're going to allow the role public to insert rows without any checks, and they will only be allowed to insert the name, because ID created at and completed will be set to the default values. So I'm going to save that permission. So right now, users who are not logged in can insert to-dos right now, because we set the insert permission for the public role. And we're also going to allow the public role to select data from to-dos without any checks, and they will be allowed to select everything, all the 4 columns. So let's save that. Okay, now we can actually we can remove this checkbox here, which means we're using the public role, and we can select data again. So maybe I'll just show you quickly here. Let's remove the select permission. Let's delete this permission for the public role and try to select the data again without the admin secret here. And you can see, if I move my camera a little bit, field to-dos not found, which means GraphQL doesn't, like if you're the public role, the GraphQL API don't know about any to-dos to select. You don't have permission for it. Of course, if you are admin, so now I'm clicking in the admin secret to use the admin secret. Now I can select, now I have full admin rights. But if I'm gonna act as a logged out user, right now I don't have the correct permissions to select to-dos because we just removed them. So let's add them again. So to-dos, permissions, select without any checks, and you're allowed to select everything. Permissions updated. So let's try again. Access or admin secret. We're not going to use admin secret. We're going to act as a public role, and we are allowed to select the data. Perfect. Yeah, so now let's create the front end for this. So let's go back to our React app that we just created here before. To-dos. So this is our React app. I'm going to start with adding a JS config file here. So yeah, we can start the editor. And let's try to make this a little bit bigger, and new file, JS config.json, I think it is. I'm setting a base path here, so making imports a little bit easier. And then we can actually yarn start this thing. Okay, our React app is working. Now we're gonna go ahead and install some npm packages to interact with our backend. And I'm gonna open a new tab here, make this one a little bit bigger as well. And just copy this npm install react nhost and Apollo client and GraphQL tag. So I'm gonna install them. React nhost, we're gonna use React nhost to make it a little bit easier to share state in our React app, because we're going to add authentication here in a while. And also React nhost makes it super easy for us to basically provision a Apollo provider, so that we can make super easy GraphQL and GraphQL queries and mutations. Let's see, what do we have here? We have, we don't care about the CSS right now. Index.js. Sure, we can allow that. I'm gonna remove a little bit here that we won't use. We won't use the CSS, the service worker. We're not gonna use. So right now it's just bare bone like this. And app.js. We're gonna basically remove all code here as well. Yeah, so in index.js, we're gonna import the nhost Apollo provider. nhost Apollo provider from React nhost, and we're gonna wrap our whole app component around nhost Apollo provider, nhost Apollo provider, and the nhost Apollo provider takes it takes an argument here, so GraphQL endpoint, and we can just copy the GraphQL endpoints from our nhost dashboard. The GraphQL API endpoint, copying and pasting. Perfect. Let's see if our app is working now. It is still working. Perfect. Okay, so now we're gonna start over with this. Well, we can use it. We can use it for what we're gonna. We can keep React. We're gonna import use query from Apollo client, and we want to use import GQL from GraphQL tag. And now we're gonna create a GraphQL query here. Basically what we want to do is we want to fetch our to-dos. We want to display our to-dos. So first we need to query them. So const get to-dos equals GQL, and we're going to query to-dos ID created at name completed. So that's the GraphQL query that we want to do. That's the exact GraphQL query that we did previously. And now we wanna get the data here, and we can do that quite simply with const data loading equals use query, and then we just specify get to-dos. So the data that we receive back is going to be here in the data variable, and we can also indicate if we're loading the data or not with the loading variable here. So we can actually start off by doing like if loading, we can just basically return loading, and the user needs to we need to wait for the loading to complete. Then what I would like to do is if we can do like this. Let's remove all these here. So if there is no data, yeah, let's do like this. If there is no data, we're gonna show what's inside here, or if there is data, let's show what's in here. So in this parenthesis, I'm gonna just state there is no data. No data. Div. And here is where we know we have data. So let's okay. Oh my god. So let's query the data with the UL and data, and that's gonna be to-dos map to-do return li to-do name, for example. I'm gonna give it a key here as well, to-do ID. Okay, let's see what we got. So we are loading the data here, we're getting the data here. If the loading, if we were still waiting for the data to load, we're gonna show loading. And if we don't get any data, we're gonna display no data, or else we will list the data. Maybe we can remove the outer div here and just have this section here. Yeah, so let's see how that works for us. So that's our data right there. The workout in Clean Kitchen is displayed with our GraphQL with our React app right now. Perfect. So let's see what happens here if we reload. You can see it, flickering a little bit here, loading, and then it shows the data. And if we add some data here, let's say, what do we want to do? Maybe buy food. Reloading. Okay, so now we have buy food as well. So that is working. Good. Okay, so but we don't want to use the Hasura console to insert data. We actually want to insert data here in our React app. So let's do that. So instead of we're gonna keep use query, but we're gonna keep the query here, but we're gonna add another GraphQL mutation. And mutations are for creating, updating, or deleting data. So what we want to do is to insert a to-do. So const insert to-do, GQL, and then it's going to be a mutation. It's going to be, this is a little bit hard to remember sometimes. So what I like to do is go to the GraphQL API and go to docs here. And I'm going to move myself over here and see, we have insert to-dos. Okay, we can start with that. Insert to-dos. And that function is taking object as a parameter. So we can basically copy this, I think. We're gonna, I'm gonna send in a to-do, which is of type to-dos insert input. To-dos insert input and input. And it's a required parameter. And then insert to-dos. Insert to-dos. Objects. And it's taking an array of objects, but we just need to insert one to-do here. So to-do. And the response, I think we're gonna have affected rows. Yeah, affected rows. Let's try that one and see what happens. And here we're gonna use something similar to use query, and it's gonna be something like this: const insert data. Well, we can do data like this. Use mutation. Insert to do. All right, use mutation. Unexpected token. Yeah, well, we need a equal sign here. That's better. And did we import the use mutation? Cool. So now we can use this function here, insert data. We should name it insert to do, to actually insert a to do. So let's create underneath here like a form with, we can just do form on submit handle form submit, and in the form we have an input type, input type text value. Okay, so let's create a to do. Yeah, we can name it to do here. Maybe to do name. Yeah. Value to do name on change. Set to do name to e. Target value. And then a button. Save. We can add. And then we need to handle this function here. So we're going to do async function, handle form submit, and we're going to prevent default. And we're just going to log here for to just see if the form handler works. So console log add or submit form. And also let's make sure, also make sure that we can access to do name here. Use state, okay, React. Okay, let's see. E is not defined. 59. Okay. Gonna bring up the inspector. Can maybe just show the whole console. What do I have inside? Yep, that's okay. 1, 2, 3. Add. Submit form to do name 1, 2, 3. Cool. So now we just want to send this data to our GraphQL API. And this is where the insert to do comes in with the use mutation. So here we're going to do, we're going to try catch this one. Try catch. And if it doesn't work, let's just say error inserting to do, and maybe log the error console. Error. And here is where we're going to try to insert the to do. So we're going to do a wait, insert to do, and this will take a variables parameter, right? And then now it's going to be a to do, and it's going to be name. It's going to be to do name. So basically, the insert to do all mutations take a variables property here, and the variable we specified was to do, right? So to do is going to be here, and to do consists of well, it consists of ID created at name and completed, but we are just going to send in the name. Remember, when we created the insert permission, we only allow the user to insert the name. So we're just going to insert the name, and the name is going to be to do name from the to do name variable here. And if everything works okay, we should be inserting a to do here, so we can just see if we pass this try catch, we can alert insert to do inserted. Okay, that has reloaded. So I'm just going to do test 1. Error inserting to do. Field affected rows not found in type. Okay, let's see here. Affected row, affected. Did I misspell this? Yeah, it's going to be affected. To do insert. We need to stop the. We can just do return here, so we don't. Yeah, so we don't. Basically, so we're stopping the function here. So let's do test 1 again. To do inserted. Okay, good. But we don't see the to do here. We need to reload the page, and now we can see it. Okay, so test 2 insert. Okay. And reload the page, we can see it. Perfect, it works. Well, it works, but it's not such a nice it's not a nice user experience that you need to reload the page. So we're gonna do a different thing here. So we're gonna fetch the data in real time. So whenever something changes in the backend, the GraphQL API will automatically push those changes to our front end. So we always have the latest data shown here in our app. So let's do that. And what we're going to do is, instead of using query, we're going to use subscription. So it's a quite easy fix actually. So instead of query, let's see here, where do we use query? We're using query here. So let's use subscription instead. And instead of query, we're going to use subscription. And use query subscription. Let's see, do I need to change anything else? I don't think so. So I changed it. I did 3 changes, and let's see now. The app has been reloaded. So I'm going to do test 3, insert, and as you can see, the data updates in real time. I don't need to reload the page for test 3 to show. Let me just remove the alert here, so we don't need to, so the app doesn't halt here. And also what we can do is actually let's see, try catch, and we can set to do name to empty when we have inserted the to do. So okay, so test4, enter. No reloading. The test4 was automatically added. That's real time, and we did 3 changes. We have real-time capabilities here in our app, and let me just show you how nice this one is. Let me detach this window here and make a change here. Can I? I'm still over here. Well, now I can be over here. So let me insert here. So test5, enter, and do you see on the left side, test5 is inserted. So, and I can duplicate this data here. So let's see if we can. Now we have multiple windows here, and let's open up the other window here. So I have 1, 2 windows, and I'm going to insert test with the capital letters here. 1, 2, 3. Insert, and all tabs are updated. Real-time capabilities. So let me just make everything here back to normal. So we have the Nhost console, we have Hasura console, and we have our app. Okay, good. Let's add authentication. Okay, so we're gonna add authentication. Authentication is built into Nhost. We don't need to do much. Maybe if you were paying attention here before, in the Nhost console we have an auth menu here. Users, these are all our users. We don't have any users, so I'm gonna add a user here now, and I'm just gonna add myself here. And that's how easy it is to add a user. I'm active, everything is set, and I'm gonna use this user in a while, but I'm gonna make a login component, and I'm gonna add some stuff to our React app so that we can log in this user that we just created. So in our terminal here, we will need 2 packages. So we're gonna do yarn add Nhost JS SDK and React router DOM. Let's see if that works. I think it's DOM. So Nhost JS SDK is a helper library to help us handle users, basically register users, login users. There's also some helper functions for storage to upload files and interact with files. We're not going to use that one now. We're just going to focus on authentication. So once that's up and ready, I'm going to create a new folder here, and we're going to call it utils, a new file, Nhost.js. And I'm just going to copy in some boilerplate here. So we're importing Nhost.js SDK, and here we're going to have our backend URL. So let me do that right now. In the Nhost dashboard, we have our backend. We have our own backend API endpoint. And we're initializing the app and initializing authentication and storage and exporting these 2 objects here, or classes. Perfect. So next what we're going to do is go to our index file, and we're actually going to import a new provider here. So Nhost auth provider, and we're going to wrap our whole app around the Nhost app provider as well. Nhost auth provider, and like so. And the Nhost auth provider basically wants this authentication object. This authentication object is the authentication state for Nhost. So this is where this is where React keeps track of who you are as a logged in user. And so we're gonna send in that object here, and we need to import it import auth from, and now we're importing it from this file here. So from utils and host. So with this provider, we share authentication state across the app, and also with the GraphQL here, we want to make GraphQL request as a logged in user. So to do that, I'm just going to share the auth object here as well. Okay, so we added a new provider, and we made sure auth is shared in both of these providers, so they share login state. Okay, what we need to do next is we need to fix some routing so we can log in. And now I'm going to be a little bit quick, so I'm going to add a new folder, call it components, and here I'm going to add a new file called login. JSX, I think. It doesn't matter. I can call it JS just for consistency. So like that. And I'm going to copy in my login component, and let me walk you through it. So nothing strange here. That's React. Use history. We're going to use this to when we're logged in. Yeah, you can see here on line 23. When we are logging in, we're going to redirect to the root path. This is our authentication object that we used just previously. Yeah, email, password, and down here we have a form, a login form, email, password, handle submit. In handle submit, we are logging in the user. And if it doesn't succeed, we're going to show an error message. If the login works all right, we're just pushing the user back to slash here to the root URL. And I'm thinking, yeah, as I said, we need to add routing as well here. So let's do that. So what we need to do, we already installed React router DOM. So let's import the necessary stuff here. We're going to use router, switch, and route. And also we want to import the login component that we just created. So let's import it here. Import, let's see, how did we export default? Okay, login from components, login.js. Okay, so now we want to wrap a little bit here. Router, switch, route, exact path, I think like this, right? And if we are on root, we can show app. And let's add another root, login, and on login we're going to show login. Okay, so we have two routes, basically slash and slash login. Let's see if things are still working in our app. They are. I can reload this one and I can log in. Yeah, okay, so this is login component, and this is our, basically this is we should only be allowed to see this when we're logged in. We're gonna fix this in 1 second. Just to make it a little bit easier to switch here in between the routes, I'm gonna add some links here. Let's see, maybe here, link, login and log out. I think I can do it like this. Wait. To login, I'm going to import that link component. And let's see, now we have the login. Yeah, we have like, and we don't want to redirect anything here. Basically what we want to do is log the user out, basically. So on click for this one, we're just gonna do auth logout, and close this a tag here. maybe I shouldn't have it as a tag. Maybe just do it as, I don't know, span. And the auth object is not imported, so let's do that. Okay, we added the two login links here. Log out, log in. Log out doesn't do much. I'm clicking here. Login will take us to the login route here. Okay, so let's try to log in. Let's try to log in with the user that we just had, that we just added here before. So right now we are logged out. We're gonna log in. Gonna log in with the user that I just created, and I'm being redirected back here, and it says no data. Now we have data in our database, so why does it say no data? Well, what happened was we're now logged in, and when we're logged in, we're using the user role. We're no longer using the public role. The public role was just for users who weren't logged in. So we're logged in, we're using the user role. Now, do we have permissions to select data with the user role? Let's see. Let's go to to-dos and permissions. And we've set permissions for the admin role, or that's set automatically. We set the permissions for the public role, but we don't have any permission for the user role, which means we're not allowed to select any data as a user right now. So let's, so that's why we don't see any data. That's why we see no data. And basically what we want to do here, we don't want to use the public role anymore, and we're going to do one small change to our to-dos table to basically connect each to-do to a user. So we can link a user to each to-do. So let's remove this public role. We're not going to use that one anymore. Remove all permissions. Okay. And before we continue here, I'm just going to delete all to-dos here so we can start fresh. And then we're going to modify our table here. What we're going to do is basically we want to connect the to-dos table with the user table. So we're going to add a user ID here to the to-dos. And this is where we're going to specify the user ID of the owner of this to-do. So it needs to be the same type, so UUID as the user's ID. We're going to add this column here. And we're going to add a foreign key to connect these two tables. So we're going to add we want to reference the users table. So user ID is linked to the ID column in the users table. So the ID here is the ID of the users table. So these two should be the same, they are linked. And we're just going to put cascade here. Save. Cool. Now there's a link between these two tables in the database, and we also want to go to the data tab here and track those or track that link. So in the GraphQL API. So I'm going to track it. Perfect. Now there is a link between the to-dos table and the users table with the ID of the user. So you can see here, basically the user ID here is going to be the user ID here. So let's do some permissions for the user. So user are allowed to insert without any checks. They're still only allowed to insert the name. And what we want to do here is make sure that the user ID here is set to the user's ID of the user making the request. And we can do that by specifying a column preset with the user ID from session variable to access our user ID. So this is where we're specifying. We don't want the user to themselves set the user ID because they can set it to any user ID. We want Hasura to set the user ID, and we want to make sure that the user ID is actually the user ID of the user making the request. I'm going to save this permission here. And let's do a select permission. And now we're going to do a custom check. So we want users to only select their own to-dos. So user ID must be equal to the user ID of the user making the request. Basically, you're only allowed to see your own to-dos. You can see everything here. That's fine. Save permission. Okay, now let's go back to our React app. Reload. We don't see any data. No data here. What do we have in the log? Close before connection established. Let's just reload everything here. Let's see what happens here. Test 1. And that works. Test 2 also works. Cool. So now we're allowed to, we can insert data and select data based on our new permissions. Let's see how it looks like in the database here. You can see in our app we only added the name, right? In the mutation here, let's find it quickly. We're using this insert to do when we're only inserting the name. The ID, they created that, completed, and user ID are added by the GraphQL API by Hasura. And when this user are selecting data, it's only allowed to select where user ID is its own user ID here. So let's look here, 2FB, and as you can see, this user that we're using to log in with had the ID of 2FB. Yeah, and I guess all the rest of the UID is the same as well. Let's just try this. Let's add another user here. So I'm going to use. Gonna add a second user. I'm gonna log out with this user and log in again. So we don't have any data. So this user are only allowed to see its own data. Let's see what it looks like here. So we have 4 records here and for 2 different users. Okay, so before I leave you guys, I just want to make one bug fix here. And let's see here, if we're logging out, we're still allowed to sort of see this to-do view. We can't use it, but we're logged out, so we're not allowed to insert any data, error insert data. So basically what we want to do, if you're logged out, you should be redirected to the login component. So let's do that. Let's protect this route. Only logged in users are allowed to see this route. So for that, I'm going to create a new component, new file, and I'm going to call it private route. And I'm going to insert some code here. So what we're doing here, now we're using use authentication, use auth, where we can see if the user is logged in or not. And basically what we're doing, if we're waiting for the users to try to log in, we're just showing loading. And so what's happening here is basically if you're signed in, we will render the component. If you're not signed in, we're going to redirect you to login. And as you see, this we're going to use. We're using the route component here of the React router DOM. So we have the private route, and now we can basically use private here instead. So instead of route, we're using I can't spell private. Private route, and we need to import this route as well. Import private route from components, private route. So now we shouldn't protect this route, right? We should protect this route. So now we're protecting this route. You're only allowed to visit this route if you're logged in, or else you're going to be redirected to login. If you're signed in or if you're logged in, we will show the component here. will allow you to see this component. Let's see if it works. Well, I was already, let's see if I'm logged out. I'm trying to go to dashboard and it doesn't work. I'm trying to, you know, access the root URL here. I'm hitting enter, loading, and it's redirecting me to log in. Let's log in. And now I'm allowed to visit this site. Now I can log out and I will be automatically redirected to login. Okay, that's it. Thank you for watching, and I hope you found it valuable. Yeah, thank you. Bye.